Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending Creating or Updating Records Retention and Disposition Schedules. My name is Gina Vergara Bautista, and I'm the Records Management Supervisor for the Archives Division, Department of Accounting and General Services. With me, assisting me today is Susie Okino. She is our office assistant in our office, and she will actually be fielding any questions you might have during the training. So please feel free to put your questions on chat. Or if you want to wait, you can also wait at the very end. You can turn on your mic, you can raise your hand, you can do all sorts of things to ask those questions. So before you try to update or create retention schedules, especially if you're going to be doing kind of like a massive inventory of all of your records, there are a few things you should do before then. First of all, you do need to let your departmental records officer know. And that's to let management know that you're going to be doing this. There's nothing worse than going through the entire exercise and having your draft retention schedule not be approved by management for whatever reason. Sometimes there's going to be changes happening that maybe you're not aware of, and they want to wait till those changes happen. But please let your management know through your departmental records officer so that you can ask for resources if needed, and you can be on the table when they're actually talking about records in upper management. The other thing you need to do, and we'll go through this, is you need to identify your agency's functions, your activities, and transactions. That actually, when you do this kind of research, you will then find out what your agency actually does, what it creates in order to meet its mandate, and what are those various transactions that are actually being recorded or documented by the records that you create or receive. You do need to determine the scope of your uh, update or creation of records retention schedules. Are you just going to do a specific office? Are you going to do division wide? Hopefully not department wide, because that would be too big of a scope to do. I think you should do it smaller scale so that your success rate will be higher. And then, of course, there's some resources you need to download to use while you're doing this exercise. Okay. This is a quick table that I suggest people create. These are the suggested columns. You want to document your function, your activities, and your transactions. You need to also figure out what kind of record series you are actually creating or receiving. Create a short description of that record series. Where are these records located? Is there a file room? Are they in someone's cubicle? Are they on a shared drive somewhere? And who's responsible for those records? And is there already an existing records retention schedule? So let's look at those three things again. So agency functions, this is high-level department or group work undertakings. You can find these in mission statements, budgets, websites, strategic plans, and objectives. The activities that you'll be looking at, that's work that's been undertaken by teams, units, sections in order to achieve each major function of your agency. And finally, transactions are tasks or processes undertaken by individuals or smaller teams or units in support of those specific activities. Where do you find all that information? These are actually the sources I myself will be looking at when I'm trying to assist you in creating, updating, or abolishing retention schedules. And we'll go over each one of these. Okay, so uh, As an example, because we are all from varied state agencies, I'm going to look at my division to use as an example. So I looked at Guide to Government in Hawaii, and sure enough, it says there, gives a little bit of history about us, and it talks about what we do as an agency. So I'll put that in my research pile. I'll also look at the statutes that affect us. So ours is uh, Title 8, is it Section 94? Public Archives, Disposal of Records. And these are just the various different sections of the law that affects us. Add that to my research pile. There are no federal laws that I could think of that directly affect archives, state archives, but we do like to keep an eye out on what the federal government does with regards to records management. So we routinely look at the Federal Records Management website to see how they manage certain records, what laws are actually out there, what laws are being changed. Because sometimes we could actually follow what the federal government's trying to do. For other state agencies, especially those that receive federal funding, there are records retention requirements specific to those various federal agencies that you need to follow because you're getting funding from them. So when you're doing research, it's a good idea to figure out where the funding is coming from, to look at their website and to go ahead and see what records retention requirements there are for you as a funding receiver. The other thing that we look at is the administrative rules that were created over time. And administrative rules are actually how we then interpret the statutes and how we actually implement those statutes when we're doing our government business. So this is what we have for the state archives. The other thing you can look for are strategic plans. For me, I just looked at our functional statement because every year I know we're supposed to look at that. We're supposed to update it. And this tells the legislature, budget and finance, and the general public what it is that the state archives is supposed to be doing. So this section here is specifically for the records management branch. And it really lists what it is that we should do, are supposed to be doing as an agency. We also have our internal policies and procedures manuals. So for that, I look at our shared our SharePoint site to see what it is that I need to make our retention schedules up to date. We also have we don't necessarily have existing file plans, but we do have existing retention schedules. So I look for those and I add those to my research pile. And then given all the information that I found, I am going to go ahead and interpret them and try to see what our agency functions, activities, and transactions are. So highlighted here, we are supposed to provide records advisory services. That's one function. We're also supposed to develop and revise retention and disposition schedules. And the other function that we have is to store inactive, non-permanent records. These are not the only functions that we have, but these are the ones that I'm going to kind of highlight and go through today. So, as I mentioned, agency functions, records advisory services, record storage. So I'm going to start filling in that inventory table. and add that two functions that I gleaned from the material that I found during my research. Now I'm going to figure out what activities we do in order to meet those functions. So the two activities are provide advisory services related to disposal of government records and also store inactive non-permanent records. I will add those to my inventory table. Then now I'm going to look at the transactions that we actually go through in order to document the activities and to meet the functions that we're supposed to be doing as an agency. So the two that I have here are develop and revise retention and disposition schedules. And then the other one is accept records for storage. I'm going to add those to my transactions column. And then off the top of my head, for the records that I do manage or see every day, I'm going to then list what record series there are that we create in the course of our business. So I have here for reviewing information submitted by agency, we actually have ARM6 form. When we research statutes, administrative rules, because an agency is trying to change, update, or create new retention schedules, we create recommendations. And then when we are successful in actually working with the agency in creating or updating retention schedules, we create an SA6. We also accept records for storage, and that would require us to create an ARM5 form or receive an ARM5 form from the agency. And then nowadays it's actually through Versatile Web. There might be also records submitted that way. And then the final record is the ARM4, which is how we notify agencies that records are eligible for destruction. We no longer use the ARM4 form. Right now, we're going to be using our database, Versatile, in order to notify agencies that records are eligible for destruction and are waiting for disposal approval. So I'm going to add those two here to our inventory table once again. And I'm actually going to make sure that there are descriptions on them so that we can figure out what an ARM5 is supposed to be doing. What's it for? And then the final thing you need to do is to actually go where the records are and inventory them. So this is a picture of an actual file room. So there might be a lot of things that people will be going through if retention hasn't been applied to our file rooms. And this is actually where you'll find things like things that are not scheduled at all and you don't know what to do with them. This might also be the time when you will figure out that some of these records could actually be destroyed already because they have met retention. But anyway, it's good to go where the records are to see what you have, to see what it is that you need to manage. So besides looking at the file room, of course, you're going to be looking at your shared files, your servers, maybe your own computer, depending on where the records are being stored, electronic records are being stored. You might also need to go to third-party storage if you are renting one of those to see what records are there. Okay, sometimes it's good to draw up floor plans and kind of illustrate where those records are. Doing this actually helps you plan better in terms of when to store records elsewhere and things like that. So it's good to have a floor plan. For electronic records, you do need to go through like I said, your shared SharePoint sites, your shared drives, and to also inventory where things are. Uh, and then you get to add that here in your inventory table. And then you also need to list who's responsible for it, who's supposed to be managing these records. Um, if you can also you can put their names on here if you want to, or you could just put the position that's responsible for those types of records. And then finally, what you need to do is see if there are existing retention schedules that apply to those records. You can download your retention schedules, the general record schedules on our website. Your specific department ones, for the most part, are there. There are a few agencies that don't have any presence in there, and we need to work with you to create those retention schedules or update them. The reason why yours may not be up there is because it's really, really out of date, and we didn't want to publish it. Okay, so here it is. This is a table. We added information on the retention schedules column, and we realized that the ARM6 form is not scheduled, so we actually need to create a new retention schedule to manage that record. So this is just we're going to go over how it is that you are going to update or create new. So if you're creating new, you need to complete an ARM6 form. If you're updating or abolishing an existing retention schedule, all you need to do is email recordcenter@hawaii.gov to let us know which retention schedule it is, why you want to update it, and what the update you're suggesting. So this is exactly what I just said a second ago. Um, the reasons why retention schedules might either being updated or abolished, there are changes in state or federal law affecting retention. The record may no longer be created or received by your agency because things change over time. And then the other one that's kind of common is state government reorganizes, and then that function that you used to have might get moved to another department or may be abolished. So that retention schedule needs to be abolished because you don't have that record anymore. And we need to update the other state agencies' retention schedule because they now have the function that was taken away from your department. So things like that. Those are the valid reasons why you'd want to change a retention schedule. To create new retention schedules, we ask that you download the ARM6 form from the Hawaii State Archives website. And this is what the form looks like. So section 1 is general information about you, the requestor, and of course about the record. So the top part is about you, who's requesting, what's the name of your departmental records officer, how do we get in touch with you? And then question 5 is the common title of group or set of records. Include form numbers if they exist. So this is what you commonly call it. And then number 6 is who creates it? Is it you, another agency, the general public? You need to let us know. Are the records originals or duplicates? If they're duplicates, where are the originals? 8 is what information do these records contain? Now this form looks really tiny, but this area here for question 8, it will get bigger as you type more information here. So please include a lot of information about the contents of the records that you're trying to schedule. We also need the purpose for the record, um, so that we know why, and it will actually help us figure out how long to retain those records. And then question 10, it's asking if these records are essentially vital records, meaning if there's a disaster today, is it one of the first set of records you need to be able to bring up from backup or to reconstitute so that you can continue with your day-to-day operations? Um, it's a kind of a loaded question because it's actually trying to make sure that you realize the value of the record that you're scheduling. Is it really that vital record, or is it something that we need to add to our continuity of operations plan in order to recover from any sort of disaster that might affect that record? It's a yes or no question. Um, and but it's up to you to actually act upon the results of the answers to this question. Whether or not you're going to add it to your COOP plan or not, that's all up to you. Question 11 is about how much records are being created over time. These sets of information are good for planning, storage, not only of paper records, but also of electronic records. It also asks who uses these records? When are the records closed? This helps figure out when to start calculating in terms of retention. Is it annually, quarterly, monthly, daily? Um, and then, of course, it'll ask more about how the records are organized, what format they are, and so forth. Do your best to answer these questions. They're just for planning purposes. So educated guess or guesstimates are quite fine. Question 19, physical location. This kind of goes with when you did your inventory to figure out where the records are. And then question 20 is, are there other public agencies that create similar or related records? Can the records be found elsewhere? This is actually to help you if you had to recover from disaster, where you could find other sources of information. Also, it will help us figure out whether this is the official record or the one found in the other agency could be considered the official record, and therefore retention is going to be applicable to the answer to that question. Is it the official or is it a duplicate? If it's a duplicate, usually we retain it up to the point when it's no longer needed by your agency. If it's the official record, we tend to add a time frame like 6 years, 10 years to that. So it's clearer when those records could actually be destroyed. And the time frame could actually also be implemented with an electronic records management system, because we don't want the answer to that question to be gray. Something gray is something like when no longer needed. A machine will not figure out when something is no longer needed, but it can calculate a time frame of 10-year retention, where on the 10th year, after the 10th year, it could actually say, hey, I could destroy these records. Do I have permission to do it? It'll do it. If it requires review, you've probably put that into your processes, and it'll ask you to review the records before it gets deleted or destroyed. Section 2 has to do with compliance and legal requirements. This is where some of the research that you did in terms of statutes, federal laws, administrative rules come into place, because you'll be answering these 6 set of questions to help us figure out, once again, how long to retain these records. So if you have citations, if you could put them here, if these records are generally audited, it'll be nice to know when and by whom. And if there's current litigation going on, it'd be also nice to know that so that we don't destroy records until that legal hold has been lifted. And then the final part of the form is actually your suggestion on how long to retain the records. Of course, you know your records and your business processes better than us. So if your statutes, federal laws, your administrative rules are silent about how long to keep those records, your knowledge of the use of that records is very important in determining this. And we do take your suggestions seriously. If you're new to the agency, you could also interview staff who've been there a while, who actually work with the records on a daily basis, because they most likely will know when something is no longer ever asked for. And that will help you determine how long to keep that record. This is a sample of a completed ARM6 form. It's kind of small, but you can see that the agency tried to answer most of the questions and actually made a suggestion as to how long to keep the record. So after you complete the ARM6 form, please send a copy to your departmental records officer to notify them that you are trying to do this. And you need to send one to us so that we can then evaluate it and try to draft a recommendation to the state archivist. So this is an example of a recommendation done last year for business registration, DCCA. So what we generally put in the recommendation is nature of the request, a little bit of description about your agency. Generally, you find this on your website. And then the record series description. Sometimes we'll ask you for samples of the records if we can't determine what the contents are or how to schedule it, sight unseen. And then it will actually have a listing of the laws affecting retention, and then finally the recommendation how long to keep it. Before we turn this into the state archivist, we actually send it to you so you can look it over, make sure everything is correct. If you send it back with an edit, we'll send it back to you, you look at it. Once you approve it, I will send it to the state archivist. He will then review it. Most of the time he approves it. The only times I've had a hard time with him is when we're trying to schedule something for permanent retention. And he disagreed and determined that maybe we just need long-term retention, but not permanent retention. Okay, so after he approves the recommendation, I'm actually going to be putting together an SA1 form. So this is what one looks like. So it has, the department, division, office, or branch that it belongs to. It has the title of the record series, a little bit of a description. It has the retention, meaning how long to keep it, and it has the disposition. What do you do with that record uh, once it meets retention or a little bit before it meets retention? I will send this back to your agency. Your division head needs to sign off, as well as your departmental records officer, your department head. It comes back to us. I'll send it to the state archivist, or his secretary will send it to the state archivist and also to the state comptroller. Once the comptroller signs off, we have an official date here. That's the date that the SA1 becomes effective, and we will send it to you. So all records retention schedules that go through this process are kept here at the State Record Center. So we have some that are from I think the oldest I've seen are from the 50s or 60s, sorry, the 60s. And we're required by our record keeping laws to keep those forever. For you, I believe you're only required to keep the ones that are still effective. Once they're superseded, you can go ahead and destroy your copy of those retention schedules. So this is what we do with your retention schedules. We actually create compilations of them, so you don't have to look at, multitude of SA1 forms. We try to keep this up to date. We're a little bit behind, but pretty soon we will have all of the ones that were updated recently to also be updated in terms of the compilations. Okay, so before we end this training session, which is actually quite short, we're going to go through a quiz. And how you can respond to this is by putting in chat your answer to the question. So question 1, who initiates the creation or update of records retention schedules? A, State Archivist, B, Comptroller, or C, Department Division? Okay, I think most people have answered. What's our most common answer, Susie?
Looks like C is the answer.
C, correct. It's actually you. You are responsible for making sure that you have records retention schedules and yours are up to date. Question 2, when does the records retention schedule become effective? A, when the ARM6 is completed, B, when the comptroller signs the SA1, and C, when the recommendation is approved. Okay. Okay. Good job, everyone. The correct answer is B, when the comptroller signs the SA1. Okay, last question. Who's responsible for having up-to-date records retention schedules? Department division, the records analyst who's assisting you, or the comptroller? Okay, the correct answer is A, the department division. Okay, thank you so much. Those are really great. It's good to see that people are listening. um, but before we all go, this is the time for questions. If you haven't already turned it in and Susie hasn't already answered your questions. Is there anything there, Susie, that we need to answer?
We haven't had any questions in the chat.
No questions on chat. Okay. Well, if you have questions, you can raise your hand, we can call on you, and you can turn on your mic. Otherwise, please turn in a question. I'm actually looking at the transcripts. I should be looking at chat. Okay. I don't see anything. No questions? Okay. I have to let you know we are working on quite a few updates to retention schedules in the books. So we are getting those requests to update. So we're working with the governor's office, uh, attorney general's office, DCCA, DLIR was completed recently. We have to just update it on the website. DCR, because they changed their name and some of their functions. And DOA submitted some requests. I think there are going to be more requests coming from DOA. So please keep sending those requests to update your retention schedules. And if you need help, always please call us or email us, and we are happy to assist you.
So
So,
you do have a few questions in the chat, Gina.
yay. Okay.
So they're asking where we can, if we can email, if we do email, the address is recordscenter@hawaii.gov. And then how do we set up a meeting with your branch? Is there a
Just
preferred way to set up a meeting or just do it by
same
email?
thing. Just email us and we will set up the meeting with you.
And then what is the turnaround time?
Unfortunately, it could be super fast because we have all the ducks in line, or it could be, unfortunately, a little bit of time. So if it's a fairly new retention schedule, we have nothing in the books at all to work with, and it's a huge set of records because no one has ever created a retention schedule or applied retention to any of your records, it could take a long time, a few months. If you're just updating one or two retention schedules, it could be pretty fast. It could be a week or 2 weeks. Um, Many times, by the time the comptroller gets it, he signs off within a few days of sending the SA1. The problem we have is we have other moving parts. It has to go from your department division to me. I create the recommendation. It goes back to you. It could go back and forth a few times. So it all depends. The reason why it's slow at this time is because I have a lot that I'm working on. But um, I'm hoping we could actually get a few more, a couple more archivists at the State Record Center to help people actually create, update those retention schedules. We have two positions. They haven't been established, but once those go up there, I'm pretty sure we can then divide up the work and it'll be a little bit faster. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions, Susie?
It looks like that's it.
That's it. All right then. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Hope to see you tomorrow for versatile web training. If not, please call us whenever you have any questions or need records management training or want to go ahead and update or create those retention schedules. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.